Good morning.
Good morning. Can you take over the host?
Yes.
Okay, I've got Isabella with me.
Okay. Hi, Isabella. Morning.
Hi, Pam. Hey. Yeah, okay. Hi, Amanda.
Hi, Sue. Good morning.
Good morning.
So I don't know if they told you, Amanda, but I'm hitting record. We are on verse 83. Vajruli Mudra, Thunderbolt Attitude. Even one living a free lifestyle without the formal rules of yoga, if he practices Vajroli well, that yogi becomes a recipient of Siddhi's perfections. Vajra is thunderbolt or lightning. It is also the weapon of Lord Indra and means mighty one. Vajra in this context refers to Vajra Nadi, which governs the urogenital system. It is the second innermost layer of Sushumna Nadi. Vajra Nadi is the energy flow within the spine, which governs the sexual systems of the body. In mundane life, it is responsible for the sexual behavior, and this aspect has been termed libido by Dr. Freud and organ by Dr. Reich. In tantric sadhana, this energy is not suppressed, it is awakened and redirected. Vajroli, Sahajroli, and Amaroli are mudras which specifically sublimate sexual energy into ojas, vitality, and kundalini shakti. According to the Shatkarma Sangraha, there are 7 practices of Vajroli. The practices involve years of preparation, which commences with the simple contraction of the urogenital muscles and later the sucking up of liquid. Only after the 6th practice is perfected can the 7th be successfully attempted by the yogi. That is the practice included in Maituna, yogic intercourse. Through this practice of Vajroli, the sexual energy, hormones, and secretions are reassimilated into the body. Its outcome is the union of the negative and positive poles of energy within one's own body. By and large, people have inherited a concept that these practices are unnatural or bad. Many commentators on the Hatha Yoga Pradipika avoid discussing these slokas, dismissing them as obscene practices indulged by low-caste tantrics. Obviously, they have an incorrect understanding of the practice. People have concocted the notion that spiritual life is separate from mundane life and the physical body because of past religious conditioning which have become perverted. These people must realize that spiritual life is not anti-sexual and sexual life is not anti-spiritual. Of course, celibacy has its own rewards, but according to Tantra, it should arise spontaneously, not out of suppression. Spiritual life means developing awareness by applying the higher mind to the experiences of the body. Whatever we do should be a means of creating yoga in our being. Why should sexual life be excluded? According to this sloka, sexual life can be elevated from the sensual to the spiritual plane if it is practiced in a particular way, and for this, Vajruli has been described. A person who has perfect control of body and mind is a yogi in every situation. A person who gorges himself on food, for example, is just as obscene as a person who indulges in uncontrollable sexual acts. This will be good to remember on Thanksgiving Day. Sexual life has 3 purposes which should be understood. For the tamasic person, it is for progeny. For the rajasic person, it is for pleasure. For the sattvic person, it is for enlightenment. The desire to release semen is an instinctual urge experienced throughout nature, not only by humans. Therefore, there should be no guilt or shame associated with it. Animals Animal consciousness is not the end stage of the evolutionary destiny for a human being. Man's potential for bliss can be extended beyond the momentary experience which accompanies the release of semen. Semen and ova control the evolutionary potential, and if these can be controlled, not only the body, but also the mind can be controlled. Nature has provided the mechanism of seminal release, but also, although it is generally not known, nature has also provided a means to control this mechanism through various practices of Hatha yoga. If the release of semen and ova can be controlled, the new range of experience dawns. Those experiences are also endowed by nature, even if only a few people have gained them. Therefore, the technique should not be considered to be against the natural order. Although medical science has generally failed to acknowledge the fact uncontrolled release of semen throughout life does contribute to premature deterioration of the vital capacities of the brain, overburdens the heart, and depletes the nervous system. Actually, it is a matter of degree, and there is no limit to perfection. Many men die prematurely of physical and mental exhaustion, with their dreams unfulfilled and their goals unattained. However, if the process of seminal release can be arrested so that energy and spermatozoa do not escape through the generative organ, but are redirected upwards into the higher brain centers, then a greater awakening can take place. A greater vision can be realized, and a greater vital power can be directed toward accomplishments in life. According to the sloka, if Rajroli is well practiced, even in another free lifestyle, that yogi's attainment in life will be greater, and a greater source of vital and mental power will become available to him. A few great yogis and masters had these experiences and have therefore instructed their disciples in the Oli mudras and other Hatha yoga techniques. In mundane life, the climax of sexual experience is the one time when the mind becomes completely void of its own accord and consciousness beyond the body can be glimpsed. However, that experience is so short-lived because the energy is expressed through the lower energy centers. This energy, which is normally lost, can be used to awaken the dormant power of Kundalini in Muladhara. If the sperm can be withheld, the energy can be channeled through Sushumna Nadi and the central nervous system to the dormant areas of the brain and the sleeping consciousness. The sexual act is the one means to totally concentrate and captivate the mind, but in Tantra, it should not be the ordinary experience. The experience has to be more than the grosser sensual one. Awareness and control have to be developed. The senses have to be utilized, but only as the means of awakening the higher consciousness, not the animal consciousness. And for this, Rajroli mudra and various tantric rituals are to be perfected. Rajroli mudra is an important practice today in the Kali Yuga when the man's ability and need to express himself in the material and sensual world is predominating. We have to act in the external world and simultaneously develop inner awareness. The purpose of life should be to attain a deeper and more fulfilling experience beyond the empirical sensory experience alone. Man has 4 basic desires known as Purushartha or Chatyuvarga. The first of which is kama, or sensual gratification. This needs to be fulfilled to a certain extent, but it should not pull the consciousness down. It should be a means to accomplish a greater result. Every action, including the sexual act, should be directed toward realizing the truth of existence. Then you are living a spiritual life. Spiritual life does not depend on living up to puritanical morality. If you can follow such puritanical ideals and attain enlightenment, then practice them, but do not condemn others who cannot. The moment you create rigid ideals that the spiritual path has to be like this and cannot be like that, you're limiting your own ability to have a total experience. Spiritual unfoldment is the process of evolution. It can happen slowly through millions of years in the process of as the process of nature, or it can be accelerated through the practices of yoga. Vrajuli Mudra accelerates this rate of evolution. The practice of Vrajuli regulates the entire sexual system. Testosterone levels and sperm production are influenced. Even if the yogi is a householder, he does not lose the semen. Therefore, whether one has sexual interactions or not, Vrajuli should be practiced. Before I just go on to verse 84, I love this. I love her words here when she says, "You cannot create rigid ideals that the spiritual path has to be like this and cannot be like that. You are limiting your own ability to have a total experience." I love that. Verse 84. There are two things hard to obtain. One is milk, and the second is a woman who can act according to your will. This sloka need not be understood on face value. There are two essential requisites in the tantric practice of Vrajoli. One is milk, and the second is an obedient woman. Milk is Kurshira. In this context, it refers to the flow of fluid or nectar from Bindu, and it also means semen. The difficulty lies in it being maintained in one's own body even after its release. Secondly, it is difficult to find a woman who is equally adept in the practice, if not more so than the man. According to the ritual of Vama Marga Tantra, the practice is led by the woman, as she is the manifestation of Shakti, and the spark of the creation or Kundalini comes from her. The third unmentioned requisite is the guru. Actually, Vrajuli, Amaroli, and Sahajoli have purposely been preserved secretly because of social beliefs, which consider them to be immoral behavior. Initiation into the practice is only given to ardent and dedicated yogis, not to the common person or the casual inquirer. The system of Hatha Yoga consists of a substratum of tantric practices. Only ritual has been omitted. It is not a coincidence that the system has been handed down from a tantric guru. In Hatha Yoga, the basic techniques for uniting the positive and negative energies within the individual have been maintained. Verse 85. By practicing gradual upward contractions during the emission in intercourse, any man or woman achieves perfection of Vrajoli. In the tantric system, it is said that the husband and wife should practice tantra together, and for that purpose, they must master certain techniques. The man has to master Vrajoli, and the woman has to master Sahajoli in combination with Mula Bandha and Uddiyana Bandha, not as Bandha, but as Mudra. Perfection of Vrajoli means being able to withdraw the seminal fluid during the height of climax. This involves the practice of contracting and controlling the muscles of the urogenital complex. It should be practiced daily in Siddhasana or Siddhayona Asana in the same progressive stages as given for Mula Bandha. Initially, the muscles of the genital, excretory, and urinary organs tend to contract simultaneously. The muscle contractions have to be isolated in 3 distinct areas. Eventually, contractions become so forceful that upward suction is created. In the female body, the labia minora should be moved upwards with complete contraction. Practice of Uddiyana Bandha before Vrajoli creates greater suction and tighter contraction. According to the Garanda Samhita, Vrajoli is an entirely different practice. Perhaps the full details have been omitted. You have to balance the body on the buttocks and place the feet behind the head. The arms remain in front of the body and the palms on the ground. In this position, the urinary complex is compressed and the automatic contraction of the urogenital muscles occurs. However, it is not specifically stated that these muscles are or should be contracted. Neither is the retention of reproductive fluid hinted at. Vrajoli for women is called Sahajoli. The yogini practices Sahajoli to regulate the hormones secreted from the ovaries. This is the principle of preservation, and Hatha Yoga And Hatha Yoga believes this to be the important point. Man must preserve his vira or semen, and the female must preserve her secretions, rajas. Abstention from sexual life is not advocated. This is one of the most important points which everyone will have to understand very clearly, because it is a scientific point. It is not that celibacy is out of the question. Celibacy has its own merits, but it is not good for all. It is opposing the very realities and processes of nature. Then what to do? Hatha Yoga has come up with a suggestion. It is called the principle of preservation. If you're able to master the technology of preservation, you are a brahmachari. You can be a brahmachari even if you are married and a householder, if you are able to handle the technology of preservation. Preservation is important. The act is not important. It is a negative, if a negative experience occurs, that is due to loss, not due to the act. So for that, Sahajoli has been prescribed for women and Vidroli for men. By slowly drawing in air through a prescribed tube inserted in the urethra of the penis, gradually air and prana traverse into the Varja Khanda. Preparation for Vidroli must specifically be done under the guidance of a guru and not just any teacher. In fact, this form of Vidroli is rarely taught. The Hatha Ratnavali states that it should only be taught to one whom the guru feels like his own prana. It should not be given to one's son without the guru disciple tradition. Therefore, even though the instructions and techniques are given here, it should not be attempted out of curiosity. The Hatha Ratnavali states that Vidroli, Sahajoli should be done by men, women. However, the following practice is specifically for men. The complete method of practice is not given in the sloka, but in the Hatha Ratnavali, there are detailed descriptions. According to the author of Hatha Yoga Pradipika, one should blow with effort through the urethra with a prescribed tube. This should be done repeatedly. If the tube is made of green grass, then insufficient air will pass. But if the passing of air is not important, then a tube of green grass can be used. A tube of gold, silver, or pure copper is recommended by Srivasa Yogi. This tube should be 3 pallas weight and 12 cubits long. The tube should be small, bright, and soft, and made like an umbrella. It should be introduced into the urethra for a moment, cautiously but without fear. This will give stability and strength to the generative organ, as well as increasing semen. A tube of one of the stable metals is specifically recommended because these are chemically inert and will not irritate or contaminate the urethra. Suitable substances for this purpose must have been procured in ancient times, as the risks of irritation and of introducing an ascending infection in the bladder by using an unsterile catheter of an unsuitable material are considerable. In this age of medical technology, we can suggest that stainless steel, such as used for surgical instruments, will be a satisfactory substitute, and in practice, a sterile rubber urinary catheter, size number 4 in width, about 20 centimeters long, is acceptable. Later, the catheter width can be increased up to size 8. Whatever material is decided upon, it should be well sterilized before use. Traditionally, the catheter was then smeared with almond oil or ghee to lubricate it so that it passed easily along the urethra without damaging the delicate lining. In our own day and age, catheterization of the bladder is routinely performed by doctors under sterile conditions. The entire surrounding genital area is first scrubbed and isolated by sterile drapes, and sterile gloves are worn. The procedure is not without inherent difficulties, and we can suggest the yogi's body and hands be cleansed with soap and dried on a clean towel with a clean sheet beneath the body. The sterilized catheter may then be lubricated with a diluted solution of non-irritant germicides such as Savlon. It is said the catheter should be gently passed to the distance of 12 angulars, 17 centimeters, while two angulars, 3 centimeters, remain outside the tip of the penis. This will depend on the individual body size and structure. The important point is that the catheter should be passed until it enters the bladder, and there must be some remaining outside the body so that liquid can be drawn up into the bladder. Initially, only a fraction of the catheter should be inserted, 1 or 2 centimeters per day. If there is no unpleasant sensation or obstruction, then insert a little further. While negotiating the rim of the bladder, resistance may be encountered. This is due to the prostate gland, which encircles the urethra at that point. This should not be overcome by force, as the urethra can be definitely torn in this way. Gentle manipulation is required, and the male organ should be held at the same angle as during the erect state. The process must be gradually accomplished day by day. Do not hurry or force the procedure, as serious injury is possible. Only the consistent gentle application is success. Only by consistent gentle application is success attained. Once that resistance is passed, the catheter is felt to pass freely into the bladder, and a volume of urine may be immediately passed through the catheter, provided the bladder was not emptied prior to commencing the practice. This urine should be collected in a clean bowl. Udiyana and Nali should now be practiced in a standing position. This sucks air into the bladder. Later, suction power can be increased by practicing Udiyana in the squatting position, Utkatasana. Only when you are able to suck up air should the same practice be done by placing the end of the catheter in a bowl of clean tepid water and sucking the water up through the catheter. After this, various liquids of increasing density and viscosity are to be drawn up. In the Hatha Yoga tradition, first air is drawn into the bladder, then water, later oil, honey, and finally liquid mercury. According to some authorities, it is neither essential nor advisable to use any other liquid than water. Instead of drawing further viscous liquids into the bladder, pure water may be used while varying the suction exerted by increasing the weight to which the liquid is raised. Pulling water up 13 centimeters is equivalent to raising mercury through 1 centimeter, because the specific gravity of mercury is 13 times that of water. I feel like I need to pause here for a second. This chapter is really long, because we're already at 8:06. Oh, I can finish this. The use of mercury as a medical agent is commonly mentioned in ancient Ayurveda and also in alchemy, where there was one of the 3 base elements, which was transformed into gold. In the ancient Ayurvedic science of India, the ashes of various elements, bhashma, were incorporated into the body, and it was claimed that by assimilation of mercury into the body, immortality could be obtained. Siddhana Garjuna and Nityananda, 2 of Nath's siddhas, are said to have attained immortality in this way. In modern times, mercury has been recognized as a powerful poison by medical scientists, and therefore some researchers now consider that these ancient prescriptions were allegorical references. Yeah, say it, Sue. Allegorical references to secret techniques which produce immortal consciousness gold. It is more than possible that the ancients were referring in real terms, not to the internal consumption of mercury, but to its use in the perfection of Rajuli Mudra as a bestower of immortality. Okay, I'm definitely pausing there. That was very interesting to learn about. My favorite part was still that spiritual path part. I'm going to highlight that part. Like constant non-judging of others.
Yep.
My Ayurveda teacher, when Isabella was born, some sects of Ayurveda would say to put some gold leaf into some honey and give it to the baby, which I wasn't going to do, obviously, because, honey in America can give them botulism. But
Yeah.
she gave me this whole diatribe about, like, I don't think in the tradition I learned in that they do any of like the metal basma things. Seemed very against it. She's like, you're gonna get metal, like heavy metal poisoning. She's like, don't you do that. um so it's interesting. It's definitely interesting. I don't know, I get thinking, like, shouldn't this stuff be done without the necessary external things like the rubber tubing and all this stuff? I don't know. I guess Hatha Yoga likes accessories, but
Props.
shouldn't we be capable of it without the props? Is my ponderance.
Yeah.
Everybody like,
Well, I think she's gonna keep going on, so maybe tomorrow we'll learn more.
maybe, but I mean, Ayurveda has all these techniques for the quote unquote humanizing substances. So like they put the metals and the herbs and everything through special transformational processes to make it where it doesn't harm humans. So that's what I've read about the Bosma treatments, but I haven't heard about mercury.
This is one of those practices where it's like, okay, I learned it and it's there and I'm aware of it now, but I don't know. It's just gonna sit there.
Oh yeah. It's for me it was walk on by,
Yeah, I'm feeling.
but it is interesting.
Yeah.
Yep. It's one of those days.
All right, so let's do some breath work and we'll meditate. And you can practice reverse thought that Amanda brought to our attention last week in her class. If you're feeling off from that reading, just come back to something positive. So just sitting up nice and tall, slight engagement of the core, relax the shoulders, taking a few breaths in and out through the nose. Trying to make the breath slow and steady. Filling up the low belly as you inhale. Completely letting go as you exhale. Relaxing the face muscles. Notice what you're doing with your left hand. Is it palm face up or down? Instead of it sitting there from habit, just letting it, making a decision on what you need this morning. And then bringing your right hand over to your face. Closing your right nostril with your right thumb. Inhale through your left. Close left with right ring finger. Exhale right. Inhale right. Close right. Exhale left. Inhale left. Close left. Exhale right. Inhale right. Close right. Exhale left. Continuing on a few more rounds on your own breath, adding retention in the locks if it's in your practice. Taking your time to finish up. When you're ready, you'll exhale out through the left nostril. I'm going to set the timer for 20 minutes. Settling into your meditation. Bringing hands together in front of heart. Namaste.